Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we'll be exploring the Skills Course for Law Students document. I'm so excited to break this down with all of you.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting looking at all 6 units and how much they cover in terms of skills for law school. Let's start with the first learning unit, Introduction to Legal Skills.
So I guess this is like setting the stage for everything that follows.
Right, this is where they unpack the whole concept of law, what it really is.
Okay, so it's more than just rules and regulations.
Definitely. It's like a whole system. Recognized and enforced by the state and everything. It's really about how they try to govern behavior in society, how we interact.
Wow, that's a lot deeper than I initially thought. So what kind of things does this unit encourage us to think about?
Well, it really gets you thinking about the purpose of law, like how different ideologies and values in society actually shape how laws are created and how they change over time.
Huh. So it's not just about blindly accepting the law. It's about understanding where it comes from and why it exists.
Exactly. And then it goes on to explore the functions of law, like how it's meant to keep the peace and create order. It's about finding a balance between what individuals want and what's good for society as a whole.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
When we think about criminal law, it's all about punishing actions that disrupt peace.
Right, exactly. And then civil law is there to help resolve disputes between people and make sure their rights aren't being violated by others.
Oh, okay, so criminal law is about offenses against the state, while civil law handles those personal disputes.
Got it. You got it. And then there's the whole aspect of developing legal skills. It emphasizes how important those skills are, especially now with technology changing everything so fast.
Yeah, it makes sense that the legal field would have to accept all the new technology and stuff.
Right. Lawyers need to be able to learn new things and adjust to keep up with those changes. Okay, so moving on to Learning Unit 2. This one's all about study skills.
Oh gosh, this one hits close to home. Law school is intense.
Oh, tell me about it. This unit, though, is designed to give you the tools and techniques you need to succeed. First up, they emphasize the difference between just studying and actual active learning.
Oh, so it's not just about reading textbooks and highlighting everything. You really have to engage with the material.
You got it. They even talk about that traditional banking model of education being kind of a problem, where you're just stuffing your brain with information without really understanding or thinking critically about it.
So rote memorization won't cut it in law school.
Nope. You got to analyze, apply, and think critically about those legal concepts. To help you do that, they introduce a 3-phase study process: exploration, fixation, and testing.
3 phases. Tell me more.
Sure. So exploration is about getting a feel for the topic, like identifying the main themes, asking yourself questions to guide your studying.
So kind of like laying the groundwork before you start building, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then comes fixation, where you dive deep into the material, really understand it, and connect the dots between different concepts.
So this is where good note-taking and summarizing skills are important, right?
You got it. And they encourage you to find what works best for you, whether that's mind maps, outlining, whatever helps you best. The important thing is that you have a system.
So it's all about making the information stick and being able to recall it later.
Exactly. And then finally, we have the testing phase, which is all about putting your knowledge to the test. It's about actively retrieving that information, figuring out where you have gaps, and using practice questions and mock exams to really refine your understanding.
So it's like the final check to make sure you're ready for those law school exams.
Exactly. Now on to Learning Unit 3, Reading Legal Texts.
Oh boy, this is one I know a lot of students find challenging. Legal texts can be dense and intimidating.
You're telling me. But don't worry, this unit equips you with the tools you need to effectively navigate these texts, whether it's legislation, court cases, or legal articles.
So different reading strategies are needed for each.
Precisely. They really emphasize understanding the structure of different legal texts. Knowing how an act of parliament is structured is different from how a court judgment is.
I can see how understanding the structure would make it much easier to find the information you need.
Right. And they give step-by-step guidance on how to find and read acts of parliament, focusing not just on the words, but on the context, purpose, and history behind it.
Wow, so it's not just about what the law says, it's about understanding the why and the how behind it. That's really interesting.
It is. Then they introduce presumptions in statutory interpretation, which are these legal assumptions that courts use when interpreting legislation.
Oh, like the presumption that legislation shouldn't lead to crazy or unfair results.
Exactly. Then we move on to note-making, which is a crucial skill for any law student, especially when you're dealing with so much information.
I remember spending hours trying to condense pages of legal jargon into something manageable.
Yeah, it's an art form. The document highlights how good note-making isn't just about jotting down random facts. It's about engaging with the material, picking out the key points, and developing a system that helps you remember the information.
So creating your own personalized study guide.
Exactly. And the document lists some of the benefits, like it helps you focus while studying, reinforces the material, and gives you a great reference for later.
I remember trying different note-taking methods in law school. Some people love linear notes, others prefer mind maps or flowcharts. It's about finding what works best for you, right?
Right. They give some practical tips, like using headings and creating visual hierarchies to organize your notes, and using abbreviations and symbols to save time and space.
That makes sense, finding that balance between detail and conciseness.
And closely related to note-making is summarizing, which is about condensing a lot of information into a shorter, clear overview.
And this is a skill you use beyond studying, right? Lawyers have to summarize complex legal arguments all the time for their clients, judges, or juries.
Definitely. The document emphasizes that a good summary accurately represents the author's main points without changing the meaning or adding personal opinions.
So getting the essence of the text without distorting the original message.
Exactly. They offer some tips on writing those effective summaries, like reading the text thoroughly, highlighting the main points, and using concise language.
Sounds like summarizing is its own skill to master.
Now, let's move on to interviewing, which is crucial for any lawyer.
I can see how it's important for gathering information, establishing a good relationship with clients, and really understanding the ins and outs of a case.
Absolutely. This unit looks at the key purposes of an interview in a legal context. Things like establishing that attorney-client relationship, identifying the main issues, understanding the client's goals, and gathering all the info you need to build a solid case.
So the interview lays the foundation for the entire legal strategy.
Exactly. And they really stress the importance of prepping before any legal interview, researching the law, reviewing files, coming up with good questions, and anticipating any challenges.
Being prepared for anything, basically.
Right. They also provide valuable advice on how to conduct the interview, emphasizing active listening, clear communication, and showing empathy and respect towards the person you're interviewing.
It seems like those interpersonal skills are just as vital as the legal knowledge and technical skills.
Oh, absolutely. You have to build trust with clients and witnesses for effective representation.
Speaking of essential skills, let's talk about logic, which is often considered the heart of legal reasoning.
For sure, this unit focuses on the crucial role logic plays in legal analysis, arguments, and persuasion. No matter what you're doing as a lawyer, whether it's arguing in court, negotiating, or drafting a document, clear and logical thinking is a must.
It's about making strong arguments, spotting flaws in reasoning, and ultimately convincing others to see your perspective.
Right. And they go into the two main types of logical reasoning, deductive and inductive.
Deductive is about applying general principles to specific situations, and inductive is drawing general conclusions from specific observations.
Precisely. They even use real legal examples to illustrate how these methods are used in practice.
Like in a criminal case, you might use deductive reasoning to show that the defendant's actions match the definition of a specific crime.
Exactly. And they warn against common logical fallacies, which are those mistakes in reasoning that weaken an argument.
So you need to know how to use logic correctly, but also how to spot and avoid bad logic in your own arguments and the arguments of others.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a little and talk about litigation, which is where legal theories and arguments are put to the test in the courtroom.
So this is where all the skills we've been discussing, reading, analysis, communication, logic, they all come together in this high-pressure courtroom setting.
Right, and this unit emphasizes the importance of thorough preparation. Research, organizing files, interviewing witnesses, and planning for your opponent's strategies.
Gearing up for battle, basically.
Yeah, you could say that. They provide a clear breakdown of the procedural steps in a trial, from opening statements all the way to closing arguments, explaining each person's role, and the rules about presenting evidence and arguments.
So it's like a crash course on courtroom procedures and how a trial unfolds.
Yeah, and then they dive into specific litigation skills like how to examine and cross-examine witnesses, how to ask the right questions to get information, and how to challenge the credibility of witnesses on the other side.
So it's a delicate balance between assertiveness and respect.
Yeah.
Knowing when to push and when to hold back.
Absolutely. Now let's move away from the courtroom and look at the legal profession as a whole.
I'm really interested to learn about the different career paths available to future lawyers.
This unit gives a structured overview of the South African legal profession. They distinguish between private and public legal practitioners and explore the different roles within each sector.
So you could work in a private firm specializing in one specific area of law, or work in the public sector for the government or a nonprofit.
That's right. The unit dives into the main roles of attorneys who work directly with clients, give legal advice, draft documents, and represent them in court.
They're the ones who help people navigate the often confusing world of law.
For sure. Then they talk about advocates, who focus on court advocacy and presenting arguments in front of judges and juries.
So they're the masters of persuasion, using their legal expertise to argue for their clients.
Exactly. Then the unit moves on to the public sector, where lawyers work to uphold justice and protect the public interest.
This is where law and social justice intersect.
Right. The unit highlights the role of prosecutors, who represent the state in criminal cases, bringing charges and presenting evidence against people accused of crimes.
They have a crucial role in upholding the law.
Yes. Then you have public defenders, who represent people who can't afford private lawyers.
They ensure everyone gets legal representation regardless of their income.
Exactly. Then they move on to some specialized areas, starting with conveyancing.
Conveyancing, that's about property transactions.
Yeah. Right. Conveyancers focus on the legal aspects of buying, selling, and transferring property. They handle contracts, title searches, register transfers, and make sure all the legal requirements are met.
That's a crucial service, especially when dealing with something as big as buying or selling a home.
Absolutely. And then there's notarial practice.
Notaries are the ones who witness signatures and certify documents, right?
You got it. Notaries do things like witnessing signatures, certifying document copies, administering oaths, and verifying that legal documents are properly executed.
So they play a vital role in ensuring that documents are authentic and legally sound.
Precisely. The unit then shifts gears and focuses on the Legal Practice Council, which is the regulatory body for the legal profession in South Africa.
So they're the ones who set the ethical standards for lawyers, investigate complaints, and discipline those who break the rules.
Right. They're really important for maintaining the integrity and reputation of the legal profession, making sure lawyers are acting ethically and protecting their clients.
It's good to know there's a system in place to hold lawyers accountable.
Definitely. Then we get to numeracy, which might seem a bit out of place, but is really important for lawyers.
I can see how being good with numbers would be necessary for things like calculating damages, understanding financial statements, and negotiating settlements.
Right. You need to be comfortable with numbers, percentages, and financial data. This unit starts with the basics: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division.
Going back to those elementary school math skills.
Right. Then it covers fractions, decimals, and percentages, using legal examples to illustrate the concepts.
Oh, so like calculating interest rates, understanding property taxes, or reading financial reports?
Exactly. They even cover how to use a calculator, which is a handy tool for those legal calculations.
It's about feeling confident working with numbers, whether you're doing it manually or with a calculator.
Right. Then they cover currency conversions, which is crucial for lawyers working in international law or cross-border transactions.
Understanding exchange rates is essential in those situations for sure.
Absolutely. Then there's interest, which can significantly impact financial transactions and legal settlements.
Interest is the cost of borrowing money, or the return on an investment.
Right. That's it. And this unit explains the basics of calculating interest, including simple and compound interest, giving clear examples to help you understand and apply them in real-world legal scenarios.
So if your client is looking for damages in a breach of contract case, you might need to calculate the interest on the unpaid amount, considering things like the interest rate and the time period.
Exactly. Getting the interest calculations right can make a big difference to the final settlement. Then it's on to taxes, which are an essential part of our system, but can be complex.
Everyone loves taxes, right?
Yeah.
Just kidding. They're a necessary part of the system, but yeah, they can be pretty confusing.
Definitely. This unit focuses on value-added tax, VAT, which is a tax on goods and services. They explain how to calculate it, understand VAT invoices, and advise clients on VAT issues.
So if your clients are buying or selling goods and services, you need to know how VAT applies to their transactions.
Precisely. And then we move on to a document that combines law and financial calculations, the legal practitioner's account.
Basically a lawyer's invoice,
Right.
Listing the services and fees.
That's it. The unit stresses the importance of clear and accurate billing, ensuring that clients understand the work done, the costs involved, and how to pay.
Transparency with clients about billing is so important.
Absolutely. They even provide an example of a legal practitioner's account, breaking down each part and explaining how to calculate the total.
It's like a template for a professional and easy-to-understand invoice.
Exactly. And that wraps up the first 6 learning units. Lots of info about skills and concepts, from reading and understanding those legal texts to what happens in the courtroom and the financial side of things.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. I feel like I have a much better grasp of what it takes to succeed in the legal profession. What do you think?
I agree. This document is really comprehensive and sets you up with a solid understanding of the key skills and knowledge you need for law school and beyond.
I feel ready to tackle the rest of the learning units and see what else I can learn.
Me too. It's going to be fascinating. Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. We've gone through a lot in those first 6 units, laying the groundwork for understanding law and essential skills. Now we're getting into some more specific skills and techniques.
I'm excited to see what's next. Learning Unit 7 focuses on reading and understanding legal texts, which seems like a pretty fundamental skill.
Oh, absolutely. It builds on what we talked about earlier, stressing how important it is to be strategic when you're reading these texts. You need to think critically. It starts with understanding the purpose of your reading. Like, are you trying to get a general idea of a legal principle, or are you doing research for a specific legal issue? Your approach changes depending on what you're trying to do.
So it's not just reading every single word, it's writing with a goal in mind. Like if I was looking at case law for a specific argument, I'd focus on those precedents and how the court reasoned through it, right?
Exactly. And then they highlight understanding the structure of the texts. Knowing how an act of parliament is put together, or a court judgment, that makes it so much easier to navigate those documents.
It's like having a map to guide you through it.
Perfect analogy. Now, the unit looks at specific types of legal texts, starting with legislation, the acts of parliament. This is super important for any aspiring lawyer.
Makes sense, since legislation is like the foundation of the legal system. Lawyers need to be able to find the right laws, understand what they say, and apply them to different cases.
Precisely, and they give a step-by-step guide on how to find and read those acts of parliament. They stress that you shouldn't just focus on the exact words, but also the context, what the purpose was, and the history of the law.
So you look beyond the surface, considering the social and political background, the reasons behind it. It makes sense. Law isn't just words on paper.
Exactly. Then they introduce the idea of presumptions in statutory interpretation, those assumptions courts make when they're trying to figure out what the law means.
Like that presumption that a law shouldn't create ridiculous or unfair outcomes.
That's one of them. All right, next up, note-making.
I remember struggling with that, condensing pages and pages of legal stuff into notes.
It definitely takes practice. This unit emphasizes that effective note-making is about more than just writing down random things. You need to actively engage the material, find those key concepts, and come up with a system that helps you remember it all.
Like making your own study guide tailored to you.
Exactly. And they highlight the benefits of good note-making, like better concentration while studying, reinforcing what you've learned, and having a solid reference to go back to.
I tried out a bunch of different note-taking methods in law school. Some people liked linear notes, others went for mind maps or flowcharts. Finding what clicks for you is key, right?
Absolutely. The unit gives some tips, like using headings, visual hierarchies, abbreviations, and symbols to save space and time.
It's about that sweet spot between detail and being concise.
Exactly. Next up, summarizing. Similar to note-making, but it's about taking a chunk of information and making it into a concise overview.
That's not just for studying, is it? Lawyers have to do that all the time, explaining complex stuff to clients or judges.
All the time. The document emphasizes that a good summary stays true to the author's main ideas without twisting the meaning or throwing in personal opinions.
So you boil it down, but keep it accurate to the source.
Precisely. They give some practical advice for writing summaries, like reading the text thoroughly, picking out the main points, and using clear, concise language.
It's like a balancing act, being brief, but also making sure you're getting the point across accurately.
Okay, moving on to interviewing, another crucial skill for any lawyer.
It's all about gathering information, connecting with clients, and getting a deep understanding of a case.
Absolutely. The unit looks at those key functions of an interview. Building that lawyer-client relationship, identifying those core issues in the case, understanding what the client wants to achieve, and getting the information you need to put together a good case.
The interview sets the stage for the legal strategy.
Right. They also highlight how important it is to prepare thoroughly, researching the relevant law, reviewing those case files, coming up with effective questions, and thinking about potential issues beforehand.
Just being ready for whatever comes up.
Exactly. They also offer advice on conducting the interview itself, emphasizing active listening, clear communication, and showing empathy and respect to the person being interviewed.
It sounds like having good people skills is just as important as legal knowledge.
Oh, without a doubt. Building trust with clients and witnesses is super important for effective representation.
But let's talk about logic, which is often considered the core of legal reasoning.
It's essential. This unit highlights the role of logic in legal analysis, argumentation, and persuasion. Whether you're in court, negotiating a settlement, or drafting a legal document, thinking logically and clearly is essential.
It's about being able to build strong arguments, spot weaknesses in reasoning, and ultimately get others to agree with your point of view.
Exactly. They dive into the two main types of logical reasoning, deductive and inductive.
Deductive reasoning is about applying general principles to specific cases, while inductive reasoning is about drawing conclusions from specific observations.
That's right. They use real legal examples to show how these methods work in practice.
Like in a criminal case, you might use deductive reasoning to show how the defendant's actions fit the legal definition of a particular crime.
Exactly. And they also talk about common logical fallacies, those flaws in reasoning that can weaken your argument.
So it's not only about using good logic, but also spotting and avoiding bad logic, both in your arguments and in the arguments of others.
Exactly. All right, now let's look at litigation, where all this comes together in the courtroom.
This is where all those skills, reading, analysis, communication, logic are put to the test. High stakes.
It is. The unit highlights how important it is to be prepared for litigation. You need to research the law, organize those case files, interview witnesses, and try to figure out what strategies your opponent might use.
Sounds intense.
It can be. They break down the steps in a typical trial, from opening statements to closing arguments, and explain what everyone does and the rules for presenting evidence and arguments.
Like a crash course in courtroom drama.
You could say that. Then they go into detail about specific litigation skills, like examining and cross-examining witnesses, knowing how to ask the right questions, get the information you need, and even challenge the credibility of opposing witnesses.
It sounds like a balancing act. Being assertive but respectful, knowing when to push for answers and when to back off.
You got it. Okay, let's move on from the courtroom and look at the broader legal profession.
I'm really interested to hear about the different career options for aspiring lawyers.
This unit gives a great overview of the South African legal profession, differentiating between private and public practice and all the roles within those sectors.
So you can work in a private firm, specializing in a specific area, or work for the government or a nonprofit organization.
Exactly. The unit highlights the key roles and responsibilities of attorneys who work directly with clients, provide advice, draft legal documents, and represent them in court.
They're the ones on the front lines helping people understand the law.
That's right. Then we have the advocates who specialize in court advocacy, presenting arguments before judges and juries.
So they're the persuasive speakers, using their legal expertise to argue for their clients' cases.
Precisely. Now, moving on to the public sector, where lawyers play a key role in upholding justice and the public good.
This is where law intersects with issues like public policy and social justice.
Absolutely. They highlight the role of prosecutors who represent the state in criminal cases, bringing charges and presenting evidence against those accused of crimes.
A crucial role in ensuring the law is upheld.
Absolutely. Then there are the public defenders who represent individuals who can't afford their own lawyer.
So they ensure everyone has legal representation no matter their financial situation.
Right. Then they delve into some specialized areas, starting with conveyancing.
That's all about property, right?
Yes. Conveyancers specialize in the legal side of buying, selling, and transferring property. They handle the contracts, the title searches, the transfer registrations, and make sure all the legal requirements are met.
Definitely a crucial service, especially when dealing with a big purchase like a house.
For sure. Then there's notarial practice.
Aren't notaries the people who witness signatures and certify documents?
Yes. They can witness signatures, certify copies of documents, administer oaths, and verify that legal documents are correctly executed.
So they're essential for making sure documents are authentic and legally valid.
Precisely. Then the unit switches focus to the Legal Practice Council, the regulatory body for lawyers in South Africa.
They're the ones setting the ethical standards, investigating complaints, and handling discipline for lawyers who break the rules.
Exactly. They play a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of the legal profession and ensuring lawyers act ethically.
Good to know there's a system in place for accountability.
Okay, shifting gears a little. Let's talk about numeracy, which might not seem directly related to law, but is super important.
I can see how being good with numbers would be essential for things like figuring out damages, understanding financial stuff, and negotiating settlement.
Exactly. The unit emphasizes how important numeracy is for lawyers who often deal with numbers, percentages, and financial data. They start with the basics: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division.
Back to the fundamentals.
Then they go into fractions, decimals, and percentages, using practical legal examples to illustrate the concepts.
So things like calculating interest rates, understanding property taxes, and interpreting financial reports.
That's right. They also cover using a calculator, a handy tool for all those calculations.
It's about feeling comfortable and confident when working with numbers.
Absolutely. Next, currency conversions. Super important for lawyers working in international law or with transactions across borders.
Makes sense. Knowing exchange rates and how to convert currencies accurately is vital.
For sure. Now let's talk about interest. It plays a big part in financial deals and settlements.
Interest is basically the cost of borrowing money or the return you get on an investment.
Exactly. The unit explains how to calculate interest, both simple and compound interest, giving clear examples so you can apply it to real-world legal situations.
For example, if your client's seeking damages in a breach of contract case, you might have to calculate the interest on what hasn't been paid, considering the interest rate and how long it's been outstanding.
That's a great example. Accurate interest calculations can have a big impact on the final outcome. Now let's move on to taxes, a topic no one can avoid.
Taxes, the fun part of life. They're a necessary part of the system, but they can be so complicated.
No argument there. This unit focuses on value-added tax, VAT, which is a tax on goods and services. It explains how to calculate VAT, how to read those VAT invoices, and how to advise clients on VAT-related issues.
So if you're working with clients who are buying and selling things, you need to know how VAT works and affects their transactions.
Precisely. Finally, let's look at a document that combines legal and financial aspects: the legal practitioner's account.
That's basically the invoice a lawyer sends to their client, listing the services provided and the fees, right?
Exactly. The unit stresses the importance of clear and accurate billing, making sure clients understand the services they've received, the costs involved, and the payment terms.
Transparency is key when it comes to billing.
Absolutely. They even include a sample account, breaking down each component and explaining how to calculate the total amount due.
It's a great reference for creating a professional and easy-to-understand invoice.
And that wraps up this section. We've covered a range of skills and concepts, from reading and understanding legal texts to navigating the courtroom and handling the financial aspects of legal practice.
I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the challenges and complexities of the legal profession.
This document provides a solid foundation for law school and your future career.
I'm ready to tackle the last part and see what else we can learn. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the skills course for law students. We've covered so much ground, from the basics to those practical skills, and now we're getting to something really crucial.
Definitely. This last part delves into ethics and the core values that are essential for legal professionals. It's not just about knowing the law, but understanding the responsibility that comes with it, advocating for justice and all that.
It's about recognizing that law is more than just rules. It has a real impact on people's lives, on society. It's about fairness and equality.
Exactly. This unit emphasizes the importance of ethical conduct. They go deep into principles like honesty, integrity, confidentiality, and respect for the court.
These principles are the foundation of the legal profession. They ensure that people can trust the justice system and that lawyers act with integrity.
Right. The document even looks at ethical dilemmas that lawyers might face. Things like conflicts of interest, where a lawyer's personal or financial interests clash with their duty to their client. Like, imagine representing a client in a business dispute and realizing you have a financial stake in the other company. That's a huge conflict of interest. You'd have to disclose it immediately and maybe even withdraw from the case. Absolutely. Transparency and acting in the client's best interests are crucial in those situations.
The document also talks about confidentiality, which is essential in the lawyer-client relationship.
So important. Clients have to feel safe sharing sensitive information, knowing it won't go anywhere.
It's like a sacred agreement that allows for open and honest communication, building trust.
Exactly. Then they move on to professional responsibility, outlining the duties lawyers have to their clients, the court, and the profession.
It's recognizing that being a lawyer is more than just a job. It's a profession with a duty to uphold the law, advocate for justice, and serve both clients and the community.
That's it. The document highlights things like competence, diligence, and continuing legal education. Lawyers need to stay up to date, keep learning, and always strive to provide the best representation for their clients.
Kind of like a doctor staying updated on medical advances, a lawyer's knowledge and skills have to keep evolving.
Right. They also talk about the importance of civility and professionalism, treating everyone with respect, clients, colleagues, even opposing counsel, even when things get heated.
Civility and professionalism are key for a fair and respectful legal system, a system that's focused on achieving justice.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the skills course for law students. We've gone through so much, providing insights and guidance to help prepare you for the exciting world of law.
We've explored the foundations, broken down those practical skills, and looked at the ethical side of the legal profession. It's been a really valuable journey, and I feel much more prepared to take on this course now.
This deep dive has given you a great head start. Remember, though, the legal profession is all about lifelong learning and growth. Always hold on to those core values we've discussed: honesty, integrity, fairness, and a commitment to justice.
Those values will guide you through the complexities of the legal world. We have no doubt that with hard work, dedication, and a strong moral compass, you'll make a real difference in the legal profession.
We wish you all the very best in your legal journey.
Until next time, everyone, happy studying, future lawyers.